Picture this. You're sitting across from HR on your last day of work. They slide a form across the table with a simple question: lump sum or monthly pension payments? You have about 10 minutes to decide, but that choice could easily cost you over $100,000. I've watched it happen. Smart, successful people who've done everything right for 30 years are suddenly faced with the biggest financial decision of their lives. And they're flying blind. The worst part, once you sign that paper, there's no do-over. I'm Josh, a CFP and partner at an award-winning retirement firm. I've personally helped over 500 clients navigate these exact decisions. There are 4 traps that come up time and time again, and they are all avoidable if you know what to look for. Here's the thing about pensions. They feel like a safety blanket, but they're more like a Swiss Army knife. Loaded with features, incredibly powerful when used right, but dangerous if you don't know what you're holding. Most retirees think their pension decision is simple. Just check a box, start getting checks, and you're done. But every choice you make triggers a chain reaction. Through your taxes, Social Security, Medicare premiums, and even your spouse's financial security. This is not a set it and forget it decision. And the very first choice is where the biggest money is made or lost. That brings us to the most common trap, the illusion of inflation protection. My grandma taught me this lesson the hard way. She retired with a small monthly pension from the state, and at the time, she felt rich. Fast forward decades later, and that same pension check barely covers a single visit to the grocery store. She wasn't irresponsible with her money. Inflation ate her lunch 1 month at a time. Here's the brutal math. At just 3% inflation, your pension loses half of its buying power in 24 years. Some pensions offer a cost of living adjustment, or COLA, but you have to ask yourself, is it keeping up with real inflation? Oftentimes, the answer to that is no. The smartest retirees I work with treat their pension like the bond portion of their portfolio, a source of steady, predictable income. Then they make sure their other investments, their 401ks and IRAs, brokerage accounts, are positioned for growth that can outpace inflation. Vanguard's research confirms what I see every day. Retirees who balance guaranteed income with growth assets almost always beat inflation over the long run. If your pension stayed flat while prices for everything doubled, what would you be forced to cut from your budget first? Because that's not a hypothetical scenario, it's the reality for millions of retirees. Now, even if you nail the inflation part, here's another massive opportunity most people miss entirely. They treat their pension and their Social Security like they're from different planets. That is a huge mistake. Let me tell you about Linda and Frank, a couple who started working with us 2 years ago. Frank had a solid pension of $4,800 a month starting at age 65. Linda had worked part-time, so her own Social Security benefit would be small. Frank's initial plan was to take a Social Security at age 62 because, in his words, I want my money now. I get it. After watching politicians change the rules for decades, why trust that the money will be there later? But here's what changed his mind. We looked at the pension as a bridge. It would provide their core income from 65 to 70. This allowed Frank to delay his Social Security claim. By waiting until age 70, his monthly benefit jumped from just $2,200 to over $2,900. That's an extra $700 every single month for the rest of his life. But here's where the real magic happened. When Frank passes away, Linda, as the surviving spouse, gets to step into the higher of their 2 Social Security benefits. So her income will jump from her own small benefit of around $800 to Frank's survivor benefit of that full $2,900. The total impact of coordinating these 2 income sources, over $200,000 more in lifetime income for their family. Suddenly, those Alaskan cruises they had been putting off were back on the table. When you coordinate these income sources, you can unlock incredible benefits. Lower taxes, smaller Medicare premiums, and even bigger checks for life. But most people never even think to connect those dots. Let's talk about the decision that feels the most immediate. Lump sum versus monthly payments. The question isn't just about which is better, it's about whether your company is giving you a fair deal on the lump sum. Let me tell you about Robert, a manufacturing supervisor I worked with just last year. After 35 years with his company, he had a pension worth about $850,000 as a lump sum, or $4,200 a month for life. Robert's gut told him to take that lump sum. He wanted control of his money. It's a common feeling. But here's what Robert didn't know. His company was lowballing that lump sum offer by nearly 20%. How can you figure this out? Simple math can be a good starting point. You divide the lump sum offer by the annual pension payments. In Robert's case, $850,000 divided by $50,400 per year gives you a break-even point of about 17 years. There was even a 5% COLA or inflation bump included. If Robert lives past age 79 and he was healthy as a horse, the monthly payments could win out financially. It depends on what he would do with the lump sum proceeds. But that's exactly the point. There's no guarantees with a lump sum the way there are with pensions. Now here's the real kicker. Robert's wife is 5 years younger. If he takes the monthly payment and passes away first, she's essentially cut out. With a joint survivor monthly pension, she could keep getting checks for the rest of her life. We ran the numbers 3 different ways. For them, the joint survivor monthly option was projected to provide an extra $180,000 over their combined lifetimes. In the end, Robert still decided to take the lump sum, but he did it with his eyes wide open. He knew exactly what he was trading off. And that knowledge, it's everything. Because it's not always about the textbook answer, it's about the answer that works best for you and helps you sleep best at night. Now, even if you navigate the first 3 traps perfectly, there's one more that can turn your secure retirement into a tax nightmare. Pensions, they feel safe, but their inflexibility can lock you into high tax brackets for decades. Let's paint a picture here. You retire at age 65 with a nice $5,000 monthly pension. Then at age 75, required minimum distributions or RMDs kick in from your 401k and IRA accounts. Now you're forced to withdraw another $40,000 a year, whether you need the money or not. Add in your Social Security and all of a sudden you're pushed into the 22% or 24% federal tax bracket for the rest of your retirement. You have no flexibility and no way to lower that tax bill. You just write bigger checks to Uncle Sam every single year. I watched this exact scenario play out with another client, Carol, a retired teacher from Phoenix. She was comfortable, but she was frustrated. I saved all this money to enjoy retirement, she says, and it feels like half of it is going to the government. Here's a strategy that we used. We treated her pension as a stable foundation. Then we got aggressive with the accounts that offered flexibility. In the years between her retirement and her RMDs, what we called the tax sweet spot, we executed strategic Roth conversions. We moved money from her traditional IRA to a Roth IRA while she was still in that 12% federal tax bracket. Instead of waiting for RMDs to push her into the 22% bracket, the result, we are on track to cut over $150,000 from her lifetime tax bill. That's money for her grandkids' college funds or just the peace of mind that comes from outsmarting the simple tax codes. The window to do this is narrow and most people can miss it completely. So here's how the happiest and, quite frankly, the most successful retirees handle these decisions. First, they run a real break-even analysis on their pension. They don't guess, they calculate exactly what lump sum versus monthly payment means for their specific situation. Second, they inflation-proof their retirement by treating the pension as their foundation and focusing on growth in other accounts. Third, they coordinate their pension and Social Security timing like their life depends on it, because in some ways it does. And fourth, they build tax flexibility with strategies like Roth conversions before RMDs and fixed pensions lock them into high tax brackets. When you get all 4 of these right, you don't just retire. You retire with the confidence that you've squeezed every last dollar of value out of your working years. No regrets, no what ifs, just the satisfaction of knowing you played the game at the highest level. We touched on big, tax-sensitive topics today, but there are so many more mistakes to avoid. Watch this next video to stay ahead of the pack. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.